I think we're good.
All right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Rap Out Podcast, brought to you by Brandon, brought to you by Matthew. And yes, we got a guest today.
We got a special guest today. We've actually been hyping you up for the past couple of episodes.
Yeah.
we've been building up the tension before we got Blueysport on the podcast.
Yeah.
Whoa. So I'm saving the intro. I was like, hey, Blue, I don't want to be rude or anything. I haven't met you yet or anything. But I actually I tried to Google you real quick. And you came up on Genius. It says Blueysport is a Grammy-nominated multi-platinum producer and songwriter from LA.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can go more.
That's your whole bio.
That was it. But like, that's dope though. There needs to be more.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I appreciate you guys having me on. Soon to be brother-in-law with Matt.
Yes,
so
sir.
We'll be Bills, BILs, you know.
Wow, that's so sweet.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, with the COVID stuff, it's like, how do you have a wedding that's
right.
like? I feel so. First of all, weddings are expensive. Second of all, it's like irresponsible. So it's just like, what are you gonna do? Like spend whatever $30,000 on like there's a fucking. You have people can't even touch each other.
Right.
So
everyone's just in their own plastic box and you can't interact with anyone.
Yeah. And then the worst part is too, I even had the ring for a long time. Then it was like right crackdown. And we had these plans, like we got a nice hotel. We canceled the hotel. So it just messed up all of the engagement plans.
Yeah, damn.
When was your wedding supposed to happen?
Well, there was no date set, but it was going to be like, early 2021 or something loose around then.
Right.
But
and
then
plan everything
before
up to that point.
Yeah, before I even got to propose, the COVID started messing things up. So then we were kind of like, well, let's just see how long. And then you know how it was, 2 months. It was just 8 a year.
Well, as long as that happens, there's no rush.
Yeah. I mean, extended honeymoon period,
Exactly.
Anyways,
so we have Blueysport on the podcast, aka Phase, which is your side project, side pseudonym.
Yeah. So that's my personal artist project because I have success producing and writing for other artists. So this is gonna be the first stuff coming out with my vocal on it, my voice on it, which I was doing before, but never had professional success. And then.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, you know what's dope is Brigitte and I actually listened to your Face stuff quite a bit. And
nice.
What she brought up, she was like, it kind of has a little bit of Nirvana feel to it. It almost has like a grunge. Definitely. It's like grunge meets new age rap or hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think definitely kind of on the alt, more grungy, kind of dark.
Right.
Those type of guitar tones and BPMs and tone of voice, I feel like too. And then, just kind of a culmination of inspirations and then, just kind of what naturally comes out.
Yeah. And I definitely want to talk about some of the artists you produce for as Blueysport.
For sure.
You've worked with Post Malone, now just recently Ty Dolla $ign and Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a host of other artists. So what's that like for you to be working with these, huge names in music? Like not even hip hop, just in music general, these are huge names.
And also what's the process like of, pandemic and going back and forth and if you meet them, in person or anything?
Yeah, I think so. First of all, it's like always so crazy. Like I never get used to, I'm always still getting starstruck. You know what I mean? Like I'll be in, I don't know, in a room with whatever Future or something. I remember I saw him and it was just like, I was just like, you know what I mean? I'm still not used to it. So it's definitely still crazy to me. But it's also kind of relieving in a sense of it humanizes them. It's like you look behind the curtain and you realize they're just normal people. You see some crazy producer and you walk in and they're making some beat that's okay, or even if it's an artist and they're in the studio just playing a song that's you just realize it's not every single thing they do is amazing. They're just like us, and it's just So it's cool to see them in the normal light and not only see their highlights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Does that ruin the magic when you peek behind the curtain? Does that ruin the magic of music and how it gets made?
Not for me. For me personally, it makes it more inspiring, and it gives me like hope, like, okay, motivation, like, okay, like they're just normal people. Like it's possible for any of us to achieve those things with, if you put in the time.
Yeah, that's a good perspective.
Yeah. Is there, because I mean, even whether if you open a business or even like us having this podcast and trying to branch out to other people, like, was there a particular track or work or something that you did that then started to get people's ears and branching you out to Ty Dolla $ign and Future and Nicki Minaj? Or
so like I had one song that was on SoundCloud that was called Call Me Back. That was just kind of like a melodic kind of like rap type song that I produced, and I was singing on it, and it didn't blow up or anything, but it, SoundCloud got like a couple thousand streams, like nothing, crazy. But from that, someone heard it, and then the person that heard it, he was like an executive producer on Stoney, Post Malone's first album. So he heard that song, and a different artist that he was working with like wanted to cut it, so they bought it. And then from that song, then I met him, and he started sending some of my music to Post, and then that's how the Khalid song came about as well. So it was really from just a song on SoundCloud, and that song wasn't necessarily big, but someone just heard it, and then that led to them.
Right. So it was very serendipitous, where it just kind of stars aligned and things happened from there.
And I found that happens a lot, because also like I did a song for this really dope artist, Danny Lay. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She's cool.
I've heard you mention her before.
Right.
You talked to me about
she's
her.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like, definitely, doing cool, good numbers, has like a couple big songs. But yeah, I was like with my friend, and he was driving, and I'm working on a song while he's doing deliveries. And I'm just working on this song, just chilling with him while he's driving around doing Amazon deliveries, and at a red light, this like crazy G-Wagon pulls up, and they're like, "What are you guys listening to?" And I'm like, "Oh, I made this." And they're like, "Yo, this is Danny Lay. DM her on IG." And then like I DM'd
just like that.
On a red light.
Dude, that's the best. I love that.
And then
only in LA, dude. That shit could only happen in LA.
That's the song. Like she ended up cutting that song to that beat and everything from the red light. Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah. So there's a lot of moments like that where it's just like,
Yeah, it was meant to happen. It just you weren't trying to force anything. It just naturally came about.
Right.
And you weren't trying to like, okay, I need to work with this artist or bust. It's just kind of.
I think one of the things is like it's not on purpose, but if you set yourself up to create more opportunities for that to happen, like if you're never working on music, you're never gonna like have someone stumble across you working on music and say they like it, right? But if you're always working on music, then there's more potential times. Oh, you're working on music in the car. You might bump into, at the gas station, but if you're not doing it in the first place. So it's like, I'm just setting myself up as much times potentially for someone to come and hear it or notice it.
Right. It's a numbers game. You're throwing mud at the wall and seeing what sticks. And,
definitely.
And someone can come across that and find it, and then, it changes everything. But what's cool, like what I like about your stories are, I had to read Mark Cuban's book for a marketing class when I was in school.
Yeah.
And the one sentence I got from that book that I still remember is he said, you only have to be right once. So it only takes one opportunity and it changes everything. So your opportunity to get on the Post Malone album, that kind of like opens up the gates for everything else. It's like, you only have to be right once. And then now you're set up where you can work with all these other artists, and then it changes the game for you a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
So is there a pressure there? Like, so if you're talking about making music and then, you hit these spots where someone drives up on you at a red light, it's like, oh shit, let me get that. But then you finally land it, you land a spot with Post Malone, or you like, holy shit, I have to make this right the first time to kind of build off what you just said? Yeah. Or is there like what's that like?
There's 100% crazy pressure where I was like, okay, so now the bar's set this high, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where do you go from there?
And then it's like in my head, you know, I'm like, oh my God, okay, now it's been 2 months, now it's been 3 months, I haven't followed it up yet. And it's just like, there's that pressure where it's like, because I know people where it's like you do one big song and then you never follow it up. And it's just like that pressure is really intense. And then on top of that, everyone is like, I'm just going to turn my phone off here. And then on top of that, it's like, you know, these people have access to the best producers, the best musicians, these people who have, you know, the best singers. I'm not really an amazing singer. I don't know how to read music. I don't know music theory, but I have taste. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where it's, I'm always putting pressure, like, okay, nothing, I don't, you know, scrambling to try to get something, you know, to get something to come out. And then like to have something come out at that level again, you know, at that A-list pop star level, it's just like, you know, it was almost, you know, it's like winning the lottery. It's like, how do you get it the first time?
Well, I think for you, it's like, you're working with, you know, with artists, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but maybe artists that may not be around for 15, 20 years. You're working with artists that are popping now, and you want to stay on top of that. But I think for you, because you're a producer and you have taste and you have talent, you're going to have a long career. So it's like, I don't think you necessarily need to pressure yourself to have the biggest pop star hit all the time. It's like you can build a foundation to have a successful career for 10, 20 years where you can work with all different types of artists, where it's not just, oh, I'm trying to make a pop song.
Yeah. And that's what's cool about being a producer is that, you know, no one is really, you're not in the light. So you can, you know, you can work with Ariana Grande, and then you can work with like little like Young Nudie or something, you know what I mean? Like you can go any direction. And
exactly.
Yeah. So
awesome. The thing I want to add to that though is like, does it matter though? Like if despite the artists that you work with, if they're kind of lame or something, like if the track is fire, does it really matter though? Like if it's depending on who it is?
No, I mean, the way I look at it is I'm like, it's all, you know, it's a business, it's numbers. So I'm like, the way I look at it is I'm like, okay, if this person here, even if I'm not in love with it, but if this song can do, you know, maybe 3 million on Spotify, and then off all platforms, maybe it does like around 7 million or something. And then this song does 2 million, but you start, and then all of a sudden, you know, you do this one song that, you know, maybe gets 50, all of a sudden, accumulatively, you have, you know, 70 million streams like across all these little songs. And that stuff just adds up. That's the way I think about it, you know?
Right.
So like
dope.
Yeah, anytime I get an opportunity to work with anyone who like has a big fan base or like a lot of monthly listeners, you know, I'm definitely like, you know, yeah, let's do it, because it's just, you never know what song is gonna go. So you can't predict it. I mean, TikTok and all these things, like it just, we don't know. It's
So with that said, I definitely want to shout out your social media. Reach you out at Blueysport on Instagram.
Blueysport across all the socials. It just, you know.
Check out FaZe on Spotify and Apple Music.
How do you spell FaZe?
It's a PHAZZZE. 3 Z's.
There you go. 3 Z's.
There you go.
So yeah, with that said, we're going to get into the album that we have for this episode. And this was chosen by Blueysport. As we do with all of our guests, they choose the album that we review, or not review, that we go over for the podcast. So Blueysport, what is the album that we're doing?
So we are doing Benny the Butcher, and I'm just pulling it up right here. I have some notes I want to pull up.
Oh yeah, do so. We're
doing
Burden of Proof.
Yes, Burden of Proof.
Dropped.
Executive produced by Hit Boy.
Yep.
Fire.
And he produced all the tracks, right? He did all the production.
I believe so. I mean, maybe there's a couple that he did, because it doesn't
always.
I'm pretty sure he did all the production, and he might have had a co-producer on 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, I think that's what it was, because I definitely heard his tag on almost.
And what's crazy, Hit Boy just did the whole Nas album that came out earlier this year.
He's on a streak. I think he got
King's
Billboard
disease.
Producer of the Year too, or something.
Yeah.
Producer of the Year.
That's pretty crazy. You don't see that. You do see a lot now of artists working, producers producing a whole album for one artist. I know Alchemist does that a lot. He does quite a few of them.
It's a common thing now, though, for sure. And not to the extent of this, where you could tell he actually produced a lot of these. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And then so Benny the Butcher is part of the Griselda crew, which has West Side Gun, Conway the Machine, and a few other artists. Have you heard the girl that's in Griselda? I forget her name. She just came out with an album.
I'm not sure. I forget
her name.
Yeah, I'm not like I'm not super familiar with. This was like kind of my introduction.
Okay.
Honestly.
Gotcha.
So with that, like, what was the reasoning behind you selecting this one?
Mm-hmm.
So there's just the singles off of it. I loved, like, well, first of all, I saw that Hit Boy was just dropping a lot more songs with artists that was kind of this style, like, kind of classic hip hop production with like actual rap bars. And I was just kind of paying attention to it and almost like kind of re-falling in love with this type of stuff. Growing up, I definitely, loved like Ghostface Killah and, all those other kind of underground, like.
And Griselda as a whole is very much in the same lane as Wu-Tang. It's grimy, New York hip hop. They're all from Buffalo.
Okay.
And they're all related, actually. West Side Gun and Conway the Machine are brothers, and Benny the Butcher is their cousin. I actually got introduced to them in 2016. I was listening to West Side Gun's Fly God and Conway the Machine, Reject 2. Those are really dope, grimy, underground hip hop albums that, remind me exactly of Wu-Tang, like that whole era. Yeah. And it's just dope that it's kind of like coming back in this way.
And it sounds, definitely like that's what drew me to it for sure. Like the song with Big Sean. So like time with Big Sean and Lil Wayne, like I just saw on Instagram, like just Hit Boy posting videos of them in the studio, just like some of the punchlines and stuff. And I was like, damn, like I gotta check this out. And then and then there's another one, Freddie Gibbs, but not the one that's on this. I think it was on a different album. And I was like, oh my God, like I haven't, kind of felt that energy from, just no one's putting out stuff like that anymore. But yeah, that's what drew me to the album. And then just Hit Boy's production was just, just so good.
Yeah. Yeah. That is one thing I really liked about this project as a whole, is that the production was very cohesive. It fit all together. None of the beats seemed out of place. It was just like a very like well done and well produced album.
Yeah, and the other thing is that stuck out to me was the production value was like really high, which a lot of times these grimy like real rap albums like this, it has that kind of edge. Like some stuff might be clipping, distortion, the vocals might be recorded on different microphones. There's kind of this like DIY sense of like, you know what I mean? But
this is definitely a lot cleaner and a lot more pristine than his other projects. And if you listen to any of the other Griselda projects, this one definitely stands out in terms of it just being cleaner and it sounds expensive. It sounds like they put a lot of money into it.
Yeah. And all the features too are obviously big features. And I feel like all the features killed it too. Like Rick Ross. Rick Ross is so smooth, like on track 2, Where Would I Go? Like Rick Ross is on such like fly player shit. You know what I mean?
Which I wouldn't expect anything less from him, but with Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, and Big Sean, it definitely, through time, they have definitely honed their lyrics and their cadence and everything. Going forward, like I liked all the features. I'm not too big on Rick Ross just because he kind of talks about the same thing every track. But it fit well with what Benny was trying to get from that track. Like it was a perfect fit.
Well, let's go in track for track. So let's start with the first track, Burden of Proof.
So with albums, like I'm always curious about the album title And then when they do a track with the album title, like what am I being introduced to? What story are you kind of telling me? So I thought with this song and throughout the rest of the album, I thought Burden of Proof, it's like on my car ride, we were heading out to Santa Rosa or something, and I was like, Burden of Proof. And it's like all these things in a dark way of like why he is where he is right now. It's like this burden that he holds with him that is proof of like the character that he's trying to sell us throughout the whole album. So right. I like that quite a bit. And the skit at the end, I felt summed it all up pretty well. But he's basically saying he's a product of his environment. He's a survivor. He's claiming, I've done the time in prison. I've actually sold drugs. I've gained experience living that day to day. He's putting himself on the map and letting us know what he's all about. And that just giving us that definition of
it's a great intro track to kind of set us up for the album. He's talking about his come up, where, like Brandon said, where he came from, and now he has the burden of proving himself in the rap world. That's kind of how I took it, where he's proved himself in the streets in terms of selling drugs and whatnot. Now he's in a new lane, and he's got to prove himself here as well. Which I think he does. Like he has some amazing lines on here.
Yeah, that was one of the other things I loved. There's so many great punchlines that I feel like that element of rap kind of died out for a little bit,
Right.
But yeah, so many good ones.
And I like too, he's not necessarily calling out people in this track and even through the other songs, but he's kind of like setting a standard of what he considers real, and you either match to that or you don't. But it's pretty clear if you are or not. So I kind of thought that was an interesting standpoint.
Yeah. So for the next song, Where Would I Go? This is the one that features Rick Ross. I fucking love the line when he says, she want to fuck me on a yacht and take a trip to Paris. I buy her expensive shit and she forget to wear it. And I was just like, damn, that's a fucking dope line. Like you're talking your shit when you say that. You know what I mean?
What's interesting, I read the note on that, of that line, and because I don't know, I'm kind of like, why are you buying a bunch of shit if you're not going to use it? But when he broke it down, he was talking about how if his girl is wearing some expensive stuff, but then goes back home and doesn't want to make people uncomfortable or herself, because it's like, I'm rich now, but I'm going back to where people don't really have a lot of money. That's where she'll forget to wear those things. And, depending on whatever group you're putting yourself a part of. So I was rolling with that for a little bit. When I read that, I was like, okay, that makes me feel a little bit better, because I'm not too into the like
braggadocious
about
material thing.
Yeah, materialistic, just for the hell of it. And I'll probably bring that up later again, but that kind of helps me a little.
I just thought it was a clever line.
I like it too. I thought it was a great line.
I thought it was dope. Like you guys mentioned earlier, I thought Rick Ross, I thought he was good on it. He had a good flow. I'm kind of on the same boat as Brandon, where I'm not a huge Rick Ross fan. He just doesn't give me a lot of depth to, sink my teeth into.
Yeah.
I loved his lines when he said, seatbelts never, that's a common law, because when the shot's fired, fat boy hopping out.
Yeah,
you gotta be ready. You gotta be ready.
He's ready to hop out the car.
I definitely think like sonically, how that song is like, first of all, coming out of the title track, A Burden of Proof, which was like a really energetic, like it was really like starts with a bang, like that was definitely. So my 3 top songs out of the whole album would be, I think my number 1 would be Timeless with Lil Wayne and Big Sean. Number 2 is probably Legend. And then the third one I like is Burden of Proof. Like, it's definitely one of the ones I like the most. So coming out of that big and like that high energy one, going, Where Would I Go with Rick Ross? It's like kind of a nice, it's a little smoother, kind of more fly. And I think sonically, Rick Ross, his voice on it, like, was a good feature, like out of all the songs in here. And then to put him on that.
His voice.
I think sonically it was definitely a cool match. And I think it was just, kind of a good a perfect way, just, perfect person to kind of just
because he adds in those braggadocious bars to go along with Benny's, you know what I mean?
Kids in the mansion that got 100 rooms playing hide and seek for weeks. What you gonna do? Like all, you know what I mean? Like amazing, but it's proper for.
Well, like the kids used to say, it's a lot of swagger. You know, he brings a lot of swag to the track.
I think there was an article on his mansion one time, and he actually does have a big ass house that I forget what the numbers on it were, but it was actually really big. Yeah. But like to continue a little bit with Rick Ross, like he does drop some nuggets in there. You mentioned the common law, but he says, you know, when you're facing some years, it's time to fight it. No seatbelts, common law. And then don't let the Rolex on your wrist cost you your soul. And I thought that part was kind of interesting because it's like, don't sell yourself out in efforts of trying to get this stuff. Because if, you know, in other albums, he's just talking about all the stuff that he has. He mentioned going from Ford to Ferrari, making that exchange.
And that's like that's right. That's like literally the last thing he says on his verse is so it's kind of, it is interesting how he just this whole flexing, and then literally ends it with, but don't sell your soul.
Don't sell your soul though. But you know, and also in this track too, like you get a little bit of insight into Benny's life a little bit. Like he mentions a lot of in the hospitals and stuff. Related to asthma attacks. And I don't know, again, selling drugs and I don't know, put it in that time and not necessarily trying to floss on purpose. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It's just like, it just happens to come along with the lifestyle that I happen to create.
Yeah. It almost seemed very autobiography type album.
Right.
To a sense.
Yeah, well, because this is technically his major label debut. So I think he wanted to let the world know, basically, because he knew he would have a lot of new listeners on this. So he wanted to tell his story and let people know where he comes from, who he is, all that kind of stuff.
It really is the debut.
Yeah. Technically, it's the debut. So next we have Sly Green. This is actually one of my favorite beats on the album. I fucking love this song. I love when he says, only rapper that would have thrived in the Tupac era. I'm talking 98 drug money, shoebox era.
Yep.
And I just love that, the throwback to, you know, Thug Life and Tupac. And, you know, we all have this image of hip hop in that era. You know what I mean? And it's not really the same anymore, but he's kind of he's from that area. He's older. Everyone in Griselda, I think they're in the mid to late 30s. So they've been around for a long time. It's just, we didn't know about them.
Yeah, he's actually born on November 27th. So he's going to be turning 36 in a couple days. So
yeah, so they're not young kids. You know, I'm sure he's very well versed in the Tupac era. Yeah. You know, and what was going on at that time.
I like, but, you know, kind of continuing with a little bit of flex, basically saying, you know, talk to me when you're on that level, spending $500,000. Like, I'm not there yet. I hope to be someday. You know, saying, well, I liked there was a line that kind of just paraphrased it. While we're out here making threats, he pays killers and placing bets. And I was like, all right. So, you know, you're claiming to be about that life. And so another note was that Sly Green sounds like it's this kind of notorious person that was selling drugs and on the block and doing a lot of stuff. And he's not necessarily paying homage to him. Or no, he's not glorifying him, but he's paying homage to him. Just like, you know, we all know his name from what he's doing, and that's where we kind of would like to be. But, you know, kind of thinking, Bluey, you mentioned earlier, like, you know, he would be, or kind of that 90s kind of feel. In one of his lines, he claims that he would be one of the only ones to thrive in the Pac era. Do you hear him? Do you hear him putting this music out in the 90s and making it?
I mean, it's tough because in the 90s, like right now, it's like, you know, there's people doing it. But I mean, in the 90s, it's like, this is when there was like the pioneers of this stuff. He's fire. But I think that, I don't know if his voice would necessarily rise to the top among like, because you think about it, like so many of these artists that now, you know, obviously it trickles down and kind of slowly forms into just like the really big legends, you know, or the ones that die. But there's a lot of people, you know, who were like, you know, I don't know, like there's a lot of people that if you look back, like, oh my God, I forgot how big that song was. I forgot how big Ludacris was. I forgot how big, like, I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
It's tough to say. I think, I don't know about the 90s, but I think he would definitely thrive in the early 2000s, like that era. And just, because that was a tough era for hip hop, because there was such a transition. It was going into the Puff Daddy era where everything was glitz and glamour and
right, bling bling
material, bling bling, the bling bling era. But this would have been a great, opposite to that. I think it would have fit really well. I think obviously in underground hip hop was, blowing up at that time. So I think this would have done really well in the underground. But I think it fits perfectly with today, because this is what hip hop needs, is this type of hip hop.
I think
on a big stage.
I agree with you, but I think it depends on who you're asking. Because if we ask like my brother's generation, he's probably, I don't know if he's listening to this or not. But like I kind of am bridging what you both said a little bit of, I think he has the lyrics of the 90s, but it's modern to today. Well, modern is today, but it's from today. So I do think it would be a better fit. It's influenced from the 90s, but would fit in the 2000s, because he's kind of saying throughout his tracks, he's like, well, I've done this and I used to do that.
Right.
So I don't know if you could be in the 90s saying like, I used to do this. It was like, but we're doing it right now though. So what do you mean?
Yeah. You have to be involved in the street life while you're rapping in the 90s. You can't, that can't be your past.
But I think
that's the one thing, is that that's unique. And that's a good point. I didn't think about that until you just said this, is that it's very past tense. It's not like, I'm in the kitchen chopping up bricks. Telling
right.
It's like I felt famous when I got my first brick. It's like, it's not current. It's kind of like, it's like
he mentions that in this album. He directly says, I had to leave that life behind, and I chose rapping instead. He's very aware that he's not involved in that life anymore, but he can still tell those stories.
Yeah.
But I think in a way, if you were to send some of these current artists back in time, I think he could do it.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
I think so.
Yeah.
And another nod to the 90s, he says, I'm on point when my enemy's not. I shoot when nobody's around me, like a penalty shot. And I just love that line, because
you play soccer?
I love the hockey reference. And in the 90s, hip hop artists loved hockey. Like Wu-Tang Clan, they would wear hockey jerseys.
Right.
It was much bigger back then. So I love that. I don't know if he meant to do that as a nod to the 90s, but that's how it felt to me.
Yeah. I liked it. I have to say, for the next track, One Way Flight, this is probably my favorite track on the whole album. Like I just like it. There's no explanation. I just like it.
But are you, does Freddie Gibbs have anything to do with that?
No.
Oh, I actually really like that one too. I generally really like the album, and I love Freddie Gibbs too.
I'm a huge fan of Freddie Gibbs. He's been on a tear lately. Obviously, the albums with Madlib are incredible. He's released some really good solo albums. He just did an album with Alchemist earlier this year called Alfredo. That's really dope.
And he had some stuff with Kenny Beats that I really like too.
Yeah. So he's been killing it for a long time. I wanted him to rap more. He had a really short verse on this song. It was
but
8
I noticed
bars or something.
This is One Way Flight is like really popular among not just us. It seems everyone, because it's like number 2 on his popular page.
Wow. I didn't catch that. But I love the singing in the back that's kind of on repetition, but it just kind of sets this mood to it. And, I have to say, this is kind of interesting as I'm thinking about it, but the mood of the song actually made me think differently for what the track's actually about. Because in the chorus, they say, would you want to cry in that
Toyota,
in the Toyota or that Maybach? And so and then there's a line before that's saying, I fuck with these hoes and all this and that. So I was kind of thinking like, hey, I'm living this kind of lavish lifestyle. And because another line, he says, I had a bra, but I never see her before 1 a.m. So it kind of tells me he's out doing his thing, comes home late, but he's also out fucking around. But for the girl that's at home, it's like, hey, like I'm not here and I'm messing around behind your back, but you have a good lifestyle. It's like, do you want to cry in the Toyota or the Maybach? And so
Right. And obviously, if you're crying in a Toyota, you're not with me anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you kind of have to put up with what I'm doing. So the song, for whatever reason, it put me in that type of mood when I was listening to it. But then when I was reading the lyrics, though, I was like, that's not necessarily what this song's about. And it's really like, I'm at this level where I have those one-way flights to do something. Your girl's going to come out and see me. And if she doesn't want to come back, she's not returning.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is on this song, there's actually some really deep lines.
Mm-hmm.
Benny says, "What's a stage with no mic and no voice of a poet? What's more important, the flower or the soil that grow it?" And I'm just like, damn, that's a really deep line. That kind of makes you pause and think for a minute. Like, you know, what does he mean by that? What's the importance of him putting that line in the song? And like, the more you think about it, the more the more deep it gets.
And it's like Ruben Studdard. That made me think of him from American Idol back in the day when he has a song that says, "What's a house with no roof?" And he's making these really good points of like, yeah, you have all these walls, but like, is it a house? If a roof is the most important part, defending you from, the weather and all that stuff. But yeah, like, what is a stage with no mic and the poet to relay the stuff? It's just nothing. It's nothing at that point. So I thought those were really cool. Those two lines that he dropped, I thought were pretty cool.
Yeah, and it almost, definitely that line, the first time I listened to the song, that was definitely the one that stuck out to me. And I got like the Genius pulled up here too. And and it even like when he talks about like what's the line, phone so burnt, need my pager back. And then it's almost, there's all these kind of like juxtapositions of like Toyota, Maybach, like phone, pager, you know what I mean? Like, so like, it's just like again, of just like his old life and the new life and kind of,
yeah, that's a great point.
That is. And like, it made me think more because when he was saying phone so burn and want my pager back, like I thought of him just, pushing all this weight or doing everything. I was like, I don't want to deal with all these phone calls, so just let it be. But, no current person would know how has never operated a pager, I'm assuming. Right. So that's a good point that you brought that up. I was like, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah. I was fucking dying when I heard Freddie's line. He said, "I control my bitches OnlyFans. I got computer work." And I was like, damn, that's crazy. Dude, Freddie is nuts, man. I fucking love Freddie.
Yeah, definitely. He's sick. I thought that line was hilarious too.
Yeah. Well, I think also too what this track comes down to is like putting all this hard work in, and it sucks, but like I'm gonna cry in this Maybach instead of this Toyota.
Right?
Would you cry?
Yeah, I think Royce had another line. He said something about, "I'd rather do my crying in a Corvette." It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go through trial. We're all gonna go through struggles, and we're gonna go through shit. But I'd rather have be in a position where I can afford things and be able to do what I want in terms of material things than not. If you're gonna cry, you'd rather do it comfortably.
Right.
Blue, what are you gonna cry in?
I'm gonna cry. If I had to pick, man, I might cry in like an old Porsche, like a '90s Porsche.
Ooh, that's legit. I like that.
Be balling and balling.
Just gotta make sure you get an updated stereo so you can get the Bluetooth in there.
Yeah. I have to put some super bougie speakers in there.
Yeah. But so the next track we got is Famous. It's more cocaine rap. Like, this is just pure uncut cocaine rap.
This is the real cocaine rap. So this is the line I was talking about before, where he says like, I don't feel famous. I got, 2 M's in the bank and, 6 figures, 2 houses, 3 cars, whatever, but I still don't feel famous. Only time I felt famous was the first time I got my brick. I got a brick. And straight just like coke rap.
That's deep right there. Like, I remember the first time my stepdad, like, he gave me $100 bill for when I went to the movies, and like, you feel rich. And even though like, I work now and I have a salary and stuff like that, like, you get that paycheck and it doesn't feel like when you have that $100 bill.
I know, when you're a kid, you're
like, holy shit, I can buy anything with this. And like, now it's not quite like
that $100 bill is equivalent to $1 million today.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, for sure. But, you know, one of the things I like about Benny's album is that there's a lot of stuff that he keeps, I don't know, it kind of toes the line, but there's a lot of stuff that he's been talking about throughout that he then will create a whole song about it. So in other tracks, if he's mentioning like, you know, I don't really care for this rap stuff. There's 2 tracks where he says like, fuck rap. I don't really care much for it. But then in this track with Famous, like I'd rather be rich than famous. But I happen to get both. Like it's not anything new as you hear this out. And yeah, and then he's kind of talking about the lifestyle of, you know, now you're being judged by the amount of presidents you have, and then shits on the people that doubted him and the ones that called to see if his number was the same. Have you had that now that you're according to the thing, multi-platinum and Grammy nominated? Have you had people that are just like, hey, is this still you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got some friends that, you know, I'm just busy. I'm just really busy now. So, you know, I just have friends that are, you know, I find myself always being like, you know, like, hey, you want to do something or let's work? And I'm, you know, can't, I'm sorry. But it's just like, I feel like, you know, if they're really your friends, they'll understand. And I still still make time.
Not only are you working and like just trying to pursue your career and better yourself, you're also a dad. You know, you have a kid. You know, when you're a dad, that takes up a lot of your time right there.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm working a lot. So the little bit of spare time I do have, I feel like I gotta do the right thing and lock in with the family, you know. But there's definitely people that have been called a Hollywood a few times, but
you know. Hey, that's just part of the deal, man.
Hey, this is Hollywood. I mean,
no, I meant like the people that are like calling you up that you haven't heard from in years, forever. And they're like, hey man, I just heard you. How are you? Is it still your number?
No, I mean, you know, I think it's so funny. I don't know. Like I haven't really had that yet. There's been times where like, I think I saw someone that I hadn't seen since high school or something. And then it was like, we just ignored each other. Didn't
That makes sense.
But you know what's interesting is kind of Benny's going through the same thing in this song. You know, he talks a lot about dealing with the fact that he made it out of the streets, and the people around him changed. You know, he had to leave the street life behind. He can't stay in that and also have his foot in hip hop and fame and notoriety. You can't have your foot in both of those because those worlds usually don't go together. They don't. It doesn't work out in the end. As point in case, you know, too many rappers have died from, you know, street violence or gone into trouble through that or gone to jail. You know what I mean? So I feel like he's being very smart about how he's moving post street life. You know what I mean? He talks about it, but he's very aware of where he is now and how he has to deal with it. He probably has, you know, survivor's remorse of making out the streets and then knowing so many people that didn't make it out or are still in the streets, you know, struggling.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and one of the things that I always noticed about this track that I don't know, like, what is BSF? When he was saying this is, what is it, BSF family or what is it? He's talking. I'm gonna put up the lyrics right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, pull those up.
And BSF the movement straight like that. I'm like, what is this? What is this BSF?
That might be maybe something from earlier on in his career or something from the streets or, you know,
Black
gang or
Soprano
something.
Family.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
We'll roll with that. I like that. Yeah. But next track, Timeless. Kind of like how, you know, this track we were talking about earlier with Lil Wayne and Big Sean. And I like how all three of them open up of what they're doing it for. So Benny the Butcher's like, you know, hey, I'm doing this for suffering children and government checks. Lil Wayne's like, I'm doing it for my young, which I'm assuming is his daughter. I think he has some other kids too. And then Big Sean's doing it for the ones that are barely surviving. And I thought that was just kind of an interesting way to open up the track. Yeah. And, you know, we get some more of like him claiming to be the last of a breed of people who sold drugs. I was like, there's, what's his name? Damn it. I forgot his name. Pusha T. I was like, he claims a lot of it. I don't know if you're like the dead last person, but Pusha T's still either talking about drugs or Drake. So, but yeah, it was a cool track.
Yeah, I was actually shocked by this track because I haven't been a Lil Wayne fan, and I really never liked Big Sean. I feel like he's on some of his earlier albums, he just had so many corny lines that I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I actually really liked both of them on this. I thought they both sounded great. They both had great lines. Both of their flows were great, and I love the beat. So I thought it it all worked.
About the beat too is that so I read something about Hit Boy saying that beat for that song was supposed to be for Watch the Throne for Jay-Z and Kanye, and they passed on it, and he said he was so surprised because he loved this beat. And yeah, it was,
damn, that's crazy.
And then instead they picked whatever, I forgot the song.
Damn, that's a good little nugget you dropped. I like that.
Yeah. Benny the Butcher's new single is a beat Jay-Z and Kanye passed on for Watch the Throne.
Damn.
But yeah, I love that beat. Just the way it comes in, it's it's just so like championship vibes.
It's epic.
Yeah, down, and it's just like, yeah, it's just dope. Like, also, Lil Wayne, I like his newer stuff too, like, Funeral and all that. Like, same, like I liked Lil Wayne back, when he was in his prime, but yeah, haven't really like got that same like, damn, okay, since he was really in his prime. But yeah, he definitely went off on this track, and
it's just he sounds more fine-tuned now, and that's why I feel like some of these artists are getting. Like Big Sean is even more like in his last album leading it to this verse. It's just like the lyrics are just more. The word comes to mind is sophisticated, and I know that's not right, but it's just the flow is more creative, and he has like his own style.
Yeah, he's definitely grown. Like I enjoyed his most recent album. I thought it was pretty good. He had really good production on there. He didn't have any terrible verses.
On the show?
No, we didn't do that album, but we'll put it on the list. So maybe in a future episode we'll do it. So most of the albums,
was cool. Like,
I was gonna say most of the albums that we do are chosen at random. So it's just kind of like whatever comes up is what we do.
Right.
But I like the whole point of this song is just kind of saying, and it references again in Legend, just I don't know if it's necessarily through music, but I'm timeless. I'm going to be here for a while. What's a king to a god kind of a thing. One line I wanted to point out from Big Sean's was, I don't know if this like become a mantra of mine, but realize you're only as complete as your plans might bleed from your hands. And I just thought that was like, it was just kind of deep. It's like, yeah, if you kind of go out there just trying to wing it and everything, it's never really going to work out. But really, you're only as complete as your plans. And another one in terms of, you mentioned growth, he says, to paint the picture, I can't look the same in my before and afters.
Oh yeah, that's a good line.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, that's. And
I like when he talked about signed a slave deal. Now I'm owning my masters. I thought that was like,
damn.
Yeah, that was a good line.
That one really caught me, and then he even says he goes. I like that he was snapping on the labels, especially like because I've never heard Big Sean really on. I mean, I'm not like well versed in his discography either, but like a beat like this, I don't know if maybe he used to do stuff like this, but
I don't know. I don't know if he's done a beat like this.
Well,
it was a perfect song for him to snap on, and then he talks about. I know there's labels that's up B's that owe me M's. And it's just like, I just like that he was going off on the industry,
Yeah.
Well,
maybe because he's signed to Def Jam, maybe he's almost off his deal, or the last album he put out was the end of his contract. So maybe he now has the freedom to do that.
Right.
So we'll see.
But, yeah, definitely really like this one. I think the production had a lot to do with it. The energy. It's funny because, it's like I haven't listened to stuff like this, in a long time, and it kind of was like refreshing to hear it done so well and so polished, and like with cool punchlines. But yeah, this was definitely. I think this was probably my personal favorite one, and I think honestly, the beat is really carrying it for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's an incredible song. I wish Nas had a few more of these type of beats on his album, you know, with
Right.
Hit Boy.
Yeah.
But we all know how it goes with Nas. He doesn't pick the best beats.
Yeah, you don't have to shit on him like that. But I guess it's song.
I mean, he definitely has, but he has picked amazing beats. But
He has picked amazing beats. I don't think King's Disease had the best production from Hit Boy.
yeah,
I think this album has better production than King's Disease,
well,
in
and
my opinion.
I think it must be. I feel like Hit Boy probably had a lot more say in what the beats are. I feel like when it was with Nas, there's probably this thing where it's like, okay, you're this legend, Nas. You know what I mean? And it's just like there's like almost that like that sense of like superiority.
And whatever you want to do.
Yeah, whatever you want to do. When I see him when he's executive producing Benny the Butcher, it's probably like he's, you know, like, yo, we're gonna do this. You know what I mean? I feel like he feels more freely to be like.
Yeah, and I feel like that usually always bodes well for the rapper is when they let the producer have a say in the song structure and what the song is gonna be about and giving direction. Because sometimes artists need that. They need direction, you know what I mean, to really put together a cohesive project.
Yeah, definitely. You know, trust the vision.
So kind of a question for you, because I don't know anything about production like that. So for example, like when you're working, to kind of go off of what Matt was saying, when you're working with Post Malone, like, is he saying like, hey, this is what I want here, here, and there? Like, are you able to give your 2 cents, or how does that process, how did it look?
So, it's different. Sometimes you're working with the artist in the room directly. Sometimes there's a middleman. So when I was specifically with Post, what happened was I'd give a bunch of beats to this guy. He'd go in the studio with him. He'd report back to me and be like, you know, he'd say stuff like, you know, Post likes this beat, but he wants like New Orleans type drums on it. Or like it'd be, you know, in my case, it was I'd send stuff. My friend would go and then he'd come back and be like, okay, he likes this, but he wants more of a Southern bounce, or he's been really into this. And it's kind of this always obscure direction that doesn't necessarily help me at all.
Right.
I think it's always best off when you kind of organically make something that they were like, anytime someone gives me direction and I start changing something, I feel like it never ends up coming out or being something. It's always when I just make something and they're like, oh my God, I love how this kind of has this weird reggae flow to it or something. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, those are always, in my opinion, when it really is successful is when.
That makes sense. It like you said, it's organic.
And it's kind of interesting because it's, you know, the description that you gave, it's almost like this like arbitrary thing, like, hey, put in something with a wine bottle sound. You're like, what the fuck does that, like, what does that mean?
And then it messes up your flow and like your creative thought process. Instead of me just going and being like, you know, like just this thoughts come in and just go out, I'm like guessing stuff. Like I was working with this big producer on his camp, and he was like, I'm like, what's the direction? And they were like, you know, the stereotypical, oh, we need like as if Kanye made it. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all,
yeah, that's a wide range. Which Kanye?
And then it was like, okay, if Kanye made a Mustard beat, and I'm like, okay, now I'm thinking way too much.
Yeah,
but it's just
you have to like go back and listen to Mustard's beats and be like, all right, what is a Mustard beat?
Yeah, it's just too much. You just got to trust people's creative vision. I think sometimes.
You know, speaking of Mustard, do you have a tagline?
Yeah, I have a tag. I need to use it more. I think it's one of those things. I can play it for you. Hold on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I do have a tag. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of tags in general, but I mean, it's branding. You got to. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, you know, singing in front of people for the first time, you're like embarrassed, like you're shy to really sing and be judged. I feel like your tag, it's something like that too. Like where I'm almost like shy to like play a beat and have my tag on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost like you build up that like, okay, nah, this tag is it. You know? It's
That's so
so
funny because
funny.
it's something that I just hear and I'm like, oh, Mustard on the beat. He's
Yeah.
on the beat. And like, I've never judged anyone for it.
Yeah,
But from when I was reading on something one time, it sounded like we take this seriously and we don't just want to put out anything.
okay, here you go.
Bluey, why you do it to me?
I like that. That's dope.
He just did that on a song, and I was like, okay, I'll use that.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
But yeah,
dope. So the next track we go into is New Streets. Yeah, another dope track. I mean, I like the beat on this one. It's a little bit shorter song. It's only 2 minutes, so it's pretty short. But he does have some more, clever lines. I like when he says, "It's going to be hard to convince kids, but honestly, losses taught me more than my wins did." And
yeah,
I think that's a valuable lesson for anything you do in life. You're going to go through losses, you're going to go through downtimes, but those teach you the lessons. And if all you had was success, if you just won everything, you wouldn't really learn anything. You just be like, oh, I expect to win and I'm going to. There's no lesson to be learned there. So it's dope that he's, he talks about his life in the streets and the lessons that he learned, and he's able to apply it today to lead a better life, to have a better life, and to have, to be comfortable in life.
And I felt like this track kind of came with a correction. So he kind of opened up by saying that he's not comfortable with how people are painting the picture of the streets. And then later on, he talks about how there's two sides, and there's the glamorous and the scandalous.
right.
And so he's talking about how, like, people moving weight, there's dirty. Oh, my bad. So he's talking about people moving weight. There's dirty people carrying straps, being smart about, when and how to move, and just being strategic. Like, he said he sat on some weight that he knew would sell, but like just being, cautious about it. But, it's like he's talking about, it's not as pretty as people are painting it, and I learned a lot from it, but don't think that you could just move in and be fine with it. Like it comes at a price. And kind of a line that he said that stuck was, this game come with more consequences than jail. And so, people in the raps or whatever may just talk about like, yeah, I served some time, but like there's other things, behind the scenes. He mentioned one time where forget which track it was, maybe it's the next one, but he's kind of in and out from 2010 to 2013 and trying to repair his marriage and fix things around the house and, things like that. So I thought it was kind of not a deeper track, as Matt says sometimes, like a lot of this stuff is kind of surface level, but it's very to the point and concise. And so I kind of respected that, where he's just dropping these things and then you can easily put this picture about it without knowing a lot of details.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely, and I think again, it's funny because, he's kind of glamorizing the street life and almost talking about it throughout the album, like reminiscent. Like, but then in this specific track, it's almost like, there's two sides, and it's like, he's kind of almost like that admitting where it's like, okay, like we all like to glamorize the street life, but there's still people in these streets right now. There's, what I mean? Like anything can happen. So I thought it was almost like that, like that somber moment where it's like, okay, we are like, talking about the streets did this, but don't forget, there are people still in the streets, still dying. It's, the consequences are real.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So next we go to Over the Limit. This one's featuring Dom Kennedy, who's just on the hook. I wasn't a huge fan of this beat at first. I felt like it wasn't as great as some of the other beats on this album. It didn't quite reach that level for me, but again, he's telling stories of being in the streets. He's telling, cautionary tales of where he's come from, but he's also saying he's moved on to hip hop, where, he realized in living the street life, the risk just wasn't worth the reward. It's eventually I'm going to pay with my life, or I'm going to be in jail. Like that's how it's going to go. So he realized, I'm going to do this hip hop thing and see where it goes.
And he's also bringing that from the streets and into currently. So, I mean, he's kind of saying like, yeah, there's still people that are a little after me. Like he paints this picture of it being really cutthroat. Then also talking about like, he doesn't like people in the industry either. And yeah, they're all just kind of out to get him. And he talks about, he brings like the statistic of a black male making it out of the lifestyle that he had and how, what do you say, 3 of 10. And so just kind of saying like, yeah, it's tragic. Like it's not all chronic and palm trees, you know, in the streets and stuff like that. So kind of a continuation from the last one, but, you know, but that he's made it, I don't know if that's where Over the Limit comes from, of just all the stuff that is built up, but this is where he is. Like he's past that limit and exceeded all expectations.
Yeah, cause this is the one where, you know, I'm looking right here at the lyrics where he kind of starts dropping specifics about his, you know, got raided by the sheriffs in 2010, came home in 2013, violated back in 13, 2014, met a plug up, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yeah, it's almost like, I feel you. It's like he's kind of done too much, over the limit, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But getting back to, I didn't like, this was the one beat that really didn't feel almost true to like the genre. Like there was kind of that synth bass, almost electronic feel.
Right. Yeah, it was a little bit different.
Yeah, it's a little different
compared to the other beats.
And and then Dom Kennedy. Yeah, this one I didn't really love, I have to say. But there were some lines, like when he did, like, I don't know, he did talk about, it's so funny because I feel like this whole album, I heard him talk about like FBI, FBI, FBI. It was like, it was, because you always hear, like, this is the one thing, in modern rap now, you always hear the same subjects like across, you know, so like one person starts talking about whatever, and then, you know, so I like that he was, you know, saying kind of the same stuff, like everyone has this fuck cops, fuck 12, you know, but you know, he's staying true to himself, you know, to his real New York, like black mafia type, you know, FBI, you know. So
oh yeah, it's an alright track. I think that one was probably my least favorite, but it wasn't a bad track at all, just compared to some of the other songs on here. I think I think
he had a couple bars in this one where was this the one where he talks about like being a mirror, like he's like, I'm a mirror when you look at me, something like that. Like there was a couple.
But I'm not your reflection, but then if you break me, that's 11 years bad luck. I forget what track that was, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that was this track, but I'll have to look. But yeah, there was some bars.
Yeah.
It wasn't this one.
Yeah. And then next we got Trade It All. So yeah, this one, you know, he gets pretty deep on this one. He's talking a lot about his brother that passed away. You know, he says, sold my story to the world, so everything I afford came from me losing my brother and all the pain I absorbed. So he's still feeling the loss of his brother to the streets, and you know, he obviously he made it out, but he's still, you know, living in that inside of his head. He still lives in that place. You know, he still has to deal with all the repercussions of living that lifestyle. You know, and he's saying, you know, he would trade all the fame and the money to have his brother back.
Right.
And you know, that's, I'm sure that's something he lives with every day, that, you know, he struggles with. And it's probably very therapeutic for him to write about it and to put it out there like that.
Yeah,
and
I thought it was
a good point in the album too, where it's like, it's, you know, he's talking about all this, you know, I don't feel famous, but I want fame and money, but I only wanted the money, but now I have both and this and that. And then this is kind of like this is almost like if it was an essay, this is the this, but I would give it all.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would trade it. You know, I would trade it all to have my brother back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I'm gonna come
point.
I'm gonna reference this track again later on at the end, because there's like an element of this song where he's talking about all these things that we just talked about, but then in the second verse, it's like he goes from talking about like giving this game to, you know, talking about, you know, we need to be aware of what we say around our kids because they're like sponges and they absorb a lot. And then like later on, like literally after that, he goes into, I wrote it down, like too expensive shoes and fucking girls. So like, I'm going to reference that at the end of when we're done here, because it's a part that like I didn't really like. But what were we on? We're on. Thank God I made it.
Thank God I made it.
Thank God I made it.
This is another song that I really love. I thought it was really dope. The beat's super dope. He said some really powerful stuff on this. When he says, "I look in my nephew's eyes and I see my brother. Sometimes I got to look away because it hurts so much." You know, he sees his brother and his nephew, and it brings back all that pain. And that's something real. That's something that you don't have to live in the streets to understand that or to relate to it. Anyone could relate to that who's lost someone and they're survived by, relatives and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, he does have those really powerful lines throughout this album.
I like how he shouts out single moms and, respects the work that they put in and everything. And then kind of like a fuck you to the fathers that bounce out. And he kind of it was kind of a topic that I feel is sensitive in some communities for sure, because he talks about how like, we like the Black community, if you grow up fatherless and then the son like goes down a bad route, then we blame the white person for how they turned out, when they actually should be blaming the father, because without his presence, he has no guidance and fucks off. And so I thought that line there was really interesting, because I mean, I don't think it's any one particular person. I think it's the system. I do think of systemic racism, and then a lot of other things that, the lack of resources and stuff like that. But I just thought it just brings up like a good debate issue for people. Because there's a lot of elements to that of why people like go down the wrong route and stuff, but it shouldn't be blamed on one specific person. There's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, definitely. And also this, like, just track listing wise, this one coming after, directly after the song about his brother, you know what I mean? I feel like it fits really nice. And just Queen Naija, with that like actual, it's one of the only songs that has a real like standout singer type hook, which was cool. I like that. I think if this is the same Naija, I wonder if this is the same Naija, because there's this Naija that I feel like this is her, who's like super young and has just been killing it, like writing for like on every huge album. And I think it's a different Naija actually, but
it was a good change of pace, like you were saying.
Change of pace, singer hook on the hook, made sense coming out of, it, like hearing it in order when I listened to it just track by track. It really, made those, specifically the bars about his nephew really hit home, because, now it sets it up, it's like.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And he talks a little bit more about, where he's come from and where he is now. He says, with no diplomas, we was soldiers. We got 380s, put 100 mil in my pocket. It's not going to change me. I just signed a deal with The Rock and I got more wavy. He's talking about going from the streets and having guns on him to signing with, Rock Nation with Jay-Z to a management deal. Just how far he's been able to come.
Going to a different kind of rock.
Right.
Rock to rock. So like this, and then when he's like talking about like hoping he's like, I swear I hear my brother's spirit. I hope he hears this. And that's almost like that's, it's kind of like that, joyful, like I finally made it. Yeah. And it's kind of just, it's definitely like a touching moment that's relatable if you're from the streets or not, for sure.
Right, exactly. So next we have War Paint featuring West Side Gun and Conway the Machine. So for me personally, I think Conway the Machine is the best one out of Griselda.
I'm not feeling his voice too much though.
Dude, he's fucking incredible. His album that he put out this year, From King to a God, I think is the best Griselda album out of all of them. I think it's better than this one. So if you haven't listened to that, you should check that one out.
Yeah.
But Conway is just on a different level to me in
There
terms
was
of
some bars for
lines.
sure in this. Like there was so many bars. I think was it Conway that had the line where he says, he's like, I don't step on the crack I don't step on the crack because I got like I'm superstitious. Was that Conway?
Yeah. I can't remember if that was him or not. Damn.
There's a couple. I was like, okay, that one's really fire. But yeah. Sorry, continue.
No. I was gonna say, I messed my dudes up. West Side Gun, I'm not too fond of his voice. Conway,
he has the high pitched voice.
Yeah, Conway the Machine's dope though, and I like the commentary. When I first heard him, I thought he was Uncle Murda when I first heard him, and then I was like, oh, okay.
So, Alex, are you familiar with Conway the Machine's history, like what happened to him? So he talks about it a little bit in the song, but he got shot in the neck, in the head.
Oh, okay. So
and that's why, and he has cerebral palsy now in his mouth, and so
you can have it in just one party. I didn't know you could have it on.
Yeah, so he had to learn how to rap different, but I don't like. Just still, he was able to continue rapping after that, and the bars that he spits now are just like insane, and like his flow is crazy. But I love when he says, "Woo even shook the hand of Beyonce. That story brought tears to the eyes of my fiance. But I don't know if it's because my shorty's such a fan, or did she realize in that moment I'm the motherfucking man?" And I was just like, damn, that's a fucking crazy ass line and thing to be able to do, you know, from where he came from being shot in the face to shaking Beyonce's hand with his fiance. Yeah. That's like, that's fucking incredible.
Yeah, that line definitely stuck out to me as well. And yeah, that's crazy. So are these like really close? So he's also, both of these features are in Griselda, right?
Exactly, yeah. Griselda's the crew. West Side Gun and Conway are brothers, and Benny the Butcher is their cousin.
Okay, so this is really
yeah, they're family. And Benny the Butcher, he's a more recent member of Griselda. They just signed him in like 2015 or 16. But Griselda, Conway and Benny, Conway and West Side have been rapping since like 2005. 2006, but they were just super underground. They're pretty much only locally known in Buffalo, and it wasn't until about 2014, 15 that they started to get noticed. And that's when I heard them. So it's crazy to see their come up and where they are now, compared to, you know, getting signed to Shady, you know, getting signed to Rock Nation, you know, signing all these crazy deals. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I like the skit at the end, kind of roasting all their names and stuff. Like saying that Griselda sounds like a babysitter, Griselda Jimenez, and I was like, oh, damn.
It's like Benny the Butcher sound like some WWE type wrestler. What's his name? Meat Cleaver?
Meat Cleaver, and then there's a couple other ones. So I thought it was funny. Like, I was like, yeah, when you put it that way, yeah, the names kind of are really ridiculous, but they're dope though. They're cool names.
Yeah, some of the skits are cool for sure.
Yeah, so we end with Legend, and yeah, this is an incredible beat. I remember the first time I heard this, I think it came out as a single, and I was just blown away. I was like, this is incredible.
Crazy. I mean, with this one, he had a co-producer, G. Rye, who's dope. I mean, so the co-producer on this actually produced "Laugh Now, Cry Later," the recent Drake single. You know, baby. He produced. He's a Drake producer, so he did "Since Way Back." He did "Nothings Into Somethings." You know, he did "Toxic" for Kaylani. He's like, I love his production. He also did a lot of "Party Next Door," "Let's Get Married," "Things and Such," SLS. He's just like that whole OVO,
right?
You know, sick ass producer, very fire. So I already knew. This is like,
you knew it was gonna be fire.
I believe this was one of the singles as well, right?
I'm pretty sure, because I think I heard this before the album came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's got some crazy lines in this. He says, "I beat a lot of charges. This money you got to pardon. I'm a boss, so my hoe's too bougie for Olive Garden." I was like, damn, that's a great line.
Yeah.
Olive Garden and Sizzler, or not so much Sizzler now, but yeah, those were next level places to go for sure. But I like how the underratedness in this track of like the best player getting drafted in the 7th round is like, that's kind of my mindset of like, I don't feel like I would be viewed as top, but I'm gonna produce. I'm gonna come out there and
you'd be like Steph Curry.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like you're not going to be taken in the top, but
he was just 7th round pick. Or no, sorry, he was drafted number 7, but he's talking about 7th round.
7th round. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I like that. And just kind of like, I'm not going to be a legend later. Like I'm a legend now. I'm a legend right now. Right. So I like the energy that it brings.
Yeah. And also him, being an older rapper and, I've like how you were saying, Matt, before that, he's like, what, 36 or something around there. And, has all this history. And then to finally now have this industry studio like
that's a long time to go without reaching where you want to be at. 'Cause think about it now, most of the artists that the younger artists, they pop off when they're 18, 19, 20.
Right.
All the artists that we know of today that are more popular, they're all very young artists. And they get hit quick with the fame and the fortune and the success, but is it set up for that to last, or is it a flame that burns out quickly?
And then the other thing is too that like there's obviously features on this, but there's a lot of songs and that aren't throwaways where it's just him. Like this song, obviously no feature, and he was going hard. Like one of the lines that specifically I thought like definitely was a dope punchline. He was like, "Put my hood in diamonds so you know how my block did it. Gun come with the Carfax so you know who I shot with it." I was like, gun comes with the Carfax so you know who I shot with it. That was like, okay, I've never. That was a bar. I definitely took notice of that one.
Yeah, that was fucking crazy. Yeah, I like Brandon said, I like his energy on this. I like, he wants his flowers now. He doesn't want you to wait till he passes away for you to call him a legend.
Yeah, and even getting back to the whole track listing, I feel like it's just the album in general, it flowed nicely because it's like boom, 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 boom. Then at the end, it's like how you're saying, it's like give me my flowers, like I'm a legend now. Like it's the perfect kind of like end.
It's a solid way to end it for sure.
Yeah, solid. So overall, Brandon, what did you feel from that, or what did you get from this album?
I mean, I got quite a bit. I like kind of how you two were saying he's kind of bringing, it's what hip hop needs, what you said, and then bringing a lot of old 90s back from what you were saying. And I'm kind of bringing that and mixing it into one pot. And I like how, because a lot of the stuff is very similar nowadays. And so he's bringing back this old element that's really refreshing. But I like too how his lyrics are very surface level. So where, you have enough information without needing a bunch of details and everything. So we've been, the last couple of pods we've been doing, whether if it's, just some people that go deeper and you really have to like Black Thought, where you have to like really read his lyrics. And what was the other one? The girl that we did?
Oh, Saw Rock.
And Saw Rock. Like you really have to like digest their lyrics. Like I like this. Yeah. And like with this, I like how you can set it in the background and it's got the production along with it was great. His lyrics are very surface, so you can just kind of just listen to him and like it's very reminiscent of what I liked, and I'm understanding everything that he's saying. So I like him. I'll definitely keep listening and to the rest of the group and stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I really enjoyed this album. I think the production was great. My only issue goes along with pretty much all of Griselda and all cocaine and street rap and coke rap. It's like I can only relate to it to a certain extent, and then it's like I can't listen to it over and over and over. You know what I mean? As compared to another artist where I can relate to more of what they're talking about. So for me, coke rap is cool. It's fun to listen to, but the replay value gets toned down a little bit for me. I can only bump it so many times before I'm like, okay, I get it. You're from the streets. I know nothing of that life. So I can't relate to what you're talking about.
Yo, let me go back real quick too. Like, and I think that's why I have to emphasize I like it being in the background, because I agree with a lot of what you're saying of like, yeah, I don't really relate to this, but if it's on in the background, I don't have to listen. But if I can listen in for like a minute and get a gist of what you're talking about, and I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I wanted to get back to that I mentioned earlier was that I've noticed in a lot of his tracks, I kind of don't like too much of when you jump around between topics. So if you're, the song was Trade It All, and as my example, so if you're talking about like, hey, we got to be careful about what we're teaching our children, they're like sponges, we got to be aware of that. But I'm wearing like $2,000 shoes that I'm putting on your carpet and I'm fucking hoes. And it's like, I thought you just told me that
Right.
we have to be aware of what we're telling our daughters. Like, stay on point and don't jump around, and then don't say things that contradict each other. And that happened a couple of times through that album. So that would be my only critique about that. It's like, stay on point with minus the contradictions. But
yeah, I think there's always that cop out where it's like, you don't know what to say, you can just say some flex, just flex.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just talk your shit.
When in doubt, roll
Flex it
on,
out.
whatever, like cocaine,
Right.
yeah. And I agree with what you were saying, Matt, about how like it's like kind of excessive when every song is, and the FBI, ask the FBI about me, bricks.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because and I think now in general too, like it's just, I don't know, like artists are so, it's, people aren't boxed in as much, like it's, people aren't thrown off if, for example, like Danny Glover was his like with his artist project, oh my god, I'm totally blanking.
Oh, Childish Gambino?
Childish Gambino, right? So like you can Childish Gambino, where it's like, you have a soul song, you have like people, it's like people in today's day and age, they're kind of almost expect you to be able to cover a couple of bases. It's a lot less niche as it used to be back then. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Billie Eilish will have like almost a dance upbeat track, and then like a ballad, and then like a straight pop song. And, even like Frank Ocean, where it's like, such a wide variety of songs, almost like people.
Yeah, it's Benny, his type of music is a little bit more one-dimensional.
Right. It's a very niche kind of thing.
Right. And it's good for the setting that you're playing it in. So a question that we usually ask each other on this podcast is, we're going to ask you is, who are you bumping this for, and where are you bumping this album? Are you playing this for your friends? Are you only playing this for yourself? Like, who are you playing this album for?
So I got my one homie who, like, from back when I just love this type of stuff, like just a real rapper, New York grimy stuff. And I feel like I would bump this chilling with, shout out to my man Danny May, aka Nurks, the drama. He makes
he makes
fire beats. Like Benny could hop on his beats for sure. I could totally just see like playing this and barbecuing up, and then drinking some beers and like freestyling over it with
that's the perfect setting for this type of music. Like you just set it up perfectly, where maybe it's not the type of album that you're playing when you're hanging out with your girl, or you're in a setting with a lot of different people that may not be into this type of music, grimy New York hip hop.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a niche album where you have to be a little bit selective on where and when you're playing this.
Right. Yeah.
But it's definitely, for me, I'm bumping this in the car when I'm driving, windows down, the stereo's up as loud as I can get it. And, you're riding, listening.
Yeah. Like that's what I did today. I went and was bumping it in the whip and listened to it front to back, just driving, like doing errands around LA. And it was just like, definitely, it was cool. I was driving by myself. It felt good. And,
Yeah. It's a cool album for that setting.
Yeah.
What about you, Brandon?
I think it's the same. Like I'm doing this at a barbecue. I'm doing it in my car. No, I mean, I feel like it's a good one to have in the background for people that, I don't know. There's a lot of areas I feel like I could see myself playing it. Yeah, I agree with all those.
And compared to other Griselda albums, this one's definitely more accessible on a mainstream level. The other albums are definitely more grimy, and a lot of the production is by Darren. They have an in-house producer. His name's Derringer, and it's a lot of the minimalist, Alchemist type beats where it's not a lot of drums.
Yeah.
And, it's a lot of sampling, and it's very slow, and it leaves a lot of room for the rappers to come in, and talk their shit. But this album's a lot different from a lot of the other Griselda projects.
I feel like this album would be great if I owned like a rare like hype beast sneaker store. Put this on like
exactly.
You know what I mean? Just walk.
Yeah, get all the kids hype.
Yeah. Check out these off-white V-Lone, whatever. It just, I don't know. I just feel like it fits in with that culture of just like shoehead, like New York bodega, like, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Nostalgic 90s, stuff like that. Like, I feel like all those, it's just like, reminds me of me and like my older brother, where it's just like, you're just kind of holding on to that, Wu-Tang, Space Jam, like 90s nostalgia, like,
right.
All that kind of era. So I think it's like the perfect kind of vibe for that. Definitely.
Dope. Hell yeah. Yeah. So that's our episode on Benny the Butcher's Burden of Proof. And we had a very special guest on today, Blueysport, aka FaZe, aka Alex.
Yeah.
Definitely hit him up on social media. Follow him on Spotify and Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that shit. Definitely, we want to keep in touch with you, and definitely let us know the different beats you're doing and artists that you're working with. And we'll definitely. Oh, and by the way, if for all of our listeners out there, our music on the podcast is one of Blueysport's beats. So you've all heard Blueysport before. You just didn't know it.
You just didn't know it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, guys. And
absolutely, thank you. Yeah, don't go too Hollywood on us. And when you blow up, don't forget about us.
Talk to my manager.
Oh wow! Damn.
That's my new thing I'm doing. Anytime like I'm in the studio, I make like all of a sudden the bass line's hitting, and I'm loving it. I just turn around, I'm like, whoo. You're going to have to talk to my manager. This one is.
I love that. I hope you said that to Ty Dolla $ign. Like, hey, man, you're going to have to talk to my manager.
I need more, Ty.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, man. Yeah, we appreciate you being on. I know we took up a lot of your time. We got to let you get back to making those fire beats.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us. It was cool. Thanks for
all right, guys. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Later. All right. We'll see you later, Alex.